From the last video, we know that we're going to start these story problems with finding out what the variable is, making a sentence that involves the word is, because we know that's like an equal sign, writing out a sentence in mathematical language, and then translating it to math notation, so to pluses, minuses, equal signs, and variables. So in example 3, Tommy puts 1/4 of the money he earns into a college education fund. He added $285 to his fund this month. Write and solve an equation to find out how much money he earned this month. So maybe we'll have M be stand for the money he earned this month. And so he earned a certain amount of money, and he puts 1/4 of that money into his college education fund. So if we want to know what 1/4 of M, the money he made, we're going to say M times 1/4 is $285. So M times 1/4 is $285. That way we're going to be able to figure out what M originally was, or how much money he earned this month was, just by knowing that he puts 1/4 into the education fund and that he added $285 to his fund. He ended up with $285. So these are other important pieces of information. So if I'm going to translate this into mathematical language, I have M times 1/4. So a way that I can write that with mathematical language is 1/4 M. Because if you think about that, that means 1/4 times M. Is, that's always my equals sign, and then 285 is on the other side. So we've come up with an equation to figure out how much money he earned this month, which is the goal of the problem. From here, we have 1/4 times M. Now, we saw a problem like this in the first lesson, where we had a fraction times the variable. Now, if you remember, what we did to that was we multiplied on the left the reciprocal. So the reciprocal is the flipped version of a fraction. The reciprocal of 2/3 would be 3/2. And we found out that if we multiply those together, 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 2 is 6, so 6/6 is 1. That's why we multiply by the reciprocal, because it'll make it so it ones out and it cancels out, and so that we won't have the fraction anymore. So same thing here. Instead of multiplying by 1/4, we're going to multiply by 4/1. And there will be a parenthesis on the left-hand side of that, but I ran out of screen. So we have 4/1 times 1/4. Multiply the tops, that's 4 times 1 is 4. Multiply the bottoms, 1 times 4 is 4. So that's 4/4. So that one's out. That becomes a 1. And so that's how we get rid of that part. And so we have M equals, and then whatever we do to the left side, we have to do to the right side. So we're going to multiply by 4/1, which is the same thing as multiplying by 4. So you'll get out your calculator for this. 285 times 4 equals 1,140. So that's how much he started with in his college education fund. He started with 1,140, and he ended up adding $285 that month. All right, example 4. An orange contains 80 milligrams of vitamin C, which is 10 times as much as an apple. Write and solve an equation to find the amount of vitamin C in an apple. So we're looking for amount of vitamin C. Maybe I'll denote that as the letter C. So we have this sentence here, this part of the sentence that is 10 times as much as an apple. So what does times make you think of? Well, that would be multiplication. So 10 times as much as an apple. So if we take the amount of vitamin C in an apple, we could have denoted that as A, maybe for apple, but we've got it as C. So we take it, C, that's how much, times 10 is 80. And so we've got a relationship between the milligram in an orange and the milligrams of vitamin C in an apple. So C times 10 is 80. Now if I translate that to math language, C times 10 I can write as 10C, just like I did in that other problem, equals 80. Because is equals, and then that 80 is on the right side. So we have 10 times C equals 80. Well, we have multiplication, so we just need to solve this to figure out the amount of vitamin C in an apple. We're going to divide both sides by 10, by what's being multiplied by C. Always divide by what's being multiplied by the variable. And on this side, 10 divided by 10 is 1, so that 1's out, and we get C equals 80 divided by 10, which is 8, and we have the amount of vitamin C in an apple. Vitamin C in an apple is 8 milligrams. So an orange contains 80 milligrams of vitamin C, apple contains 8 milligrams. And you don't have to write that, but you would if you were in a physics class by Mr. Davy. Yeah, so we wrote a sentence out in math, we translated it to math language, and then we solved it for the variable. And so you can go ahead and give some homework problems a try that are like this.